Today is May 14th, 2020. It's 10 o'clock a.m. So we welcome each of you to our meeting today. Let's begin our meeting first with a roll call. And the way that I will do the roll call for the board members is I will read your name and say if you are there. And then after we do that, we will have Director Adams proceed to do the roll call with the staff members and whoever else may be in attendance. So we will go in this same order on our roll call, on our votes, and things for the board members throughout our meetings today. From the Bear River, Charles Holmgren.
I am here. Charles Holmgren's here.
Okay, Weaver River, Kyle Stevens.
Present.
Salt Lake, Juliet Tennert.
Present.
Provo River, Wayne Anderson.
Present.
Green River, Randy Crozier.
Yes, here.
Okay, Sevier River, I am Blaine Ipson. I am here. Upper Colorado River, Norm Johnson.
I'm here.
Lower Colorado River, James Lemon.
Here.
Okay, so the board members are here. Director Adams, would you like to do a roll call with the others that are on?
Sure. What I'll do is I'll just pull the people list that's up on the side and just go down and mention who's here so far. We've got Ben Merritt from staff, Candace Hasenjager, our deputy director, Carmen McDonald, Jacqueline Pacheco, Joel Williams, Lindsay Russell. Lindsay, welcome, and you're ready for notes, right? She said yes. I heard her in the other office. Marcy Larson, Marisa Egbert, Russell Hadley, Shalane DiBernardi, Todd Stonley, Tom Cox, and some tech folks that are Paul and Carmen that are doing the live feed for us. So thank you so much. I just remind the members and board members and staff that when we're on here, we need to make sure we're muted so we don't get some bad or background components. If you're on your phone, just use the mute on your phone. There's a mute button on your phone and we'll just use that. So if you have any questions, please text us or put in the message box and we'll try to get those out there. Mr. Chairman, that is the roll so far for the briefing meeting.
Okay, thank you. Just looking at my list, it looks like Norm, you need to mute your phone. And then probably Randy, it looks like. Jacqueline, you need to mute yours.
Blaine, Chairman, they will mute it on their phone, so it will show the three dots not muted rather than muted on here. That way they don't have to go through the *6 gyrate.
Okay, good. It's just I'm hearing a lot of background noise, so somebody's not muted. There, it's all gone now. But when
it was me.
Maybe it was you. Okay, so the protocol today, again, this board meeting, the same as our last board meeting on April 9th.
This is the briefing meeting.
This is the briefing meeting. Yeah, this briefing meeting, we're doing it electronically, and our regular board meeting will be done with the same format at 1 o'clock as we did back on April the 9th, electronic format and that type of thing. So with that in mind, we will go into our agenda. We'll start with item number 2, discussion of board agenda items. So let's go through the agenda for the regular board meeting. We will begin with the welcome, the roll call. We'll go through the minutes. Have all of you had an opportunity to look through the minutes from our last meetings?
I have.
This is Norman. I did.
Okay. Do any of you, maybe a better way to phrase that for right now, when we go into the regular board meeting, we'll have the protocol that we have to have a roll call on all votes, and so please identify yourself before you speak and on motions and discussion and votes and things like that. But do do any of the board members have any comments or questions on any of the minutes? Norm said he didn't. Does anyone have any questions?
Mr. Chairman, this is Charles. I just have a couple of spelling errors that I've noticed on page 5 of the regular meeting minutes. Jeff Hardy's name, the letter Y is left off his last name. And then on page 7, it refers to Wayne Holmgren instead of Wayne Anderson on motion about slow the flow agreement.
Okay, thank you. Anyone have any other comments on the minutes? Okay, the next
This
item.
is-
Go ahead.
This is Norman. Did we need to make a comment in the minutes noting that noting that we were voting by person?
Well, what we'll do, we'll have a motion and identify who makes the motion in the main meeting, and then a second by name. We'll have a discussion on them, and then we'll call for a roll call vote, and I'll go in that same order, starting with the up north, the Bear River, and ending down south with the Lower Colorado River, just name by name, and vote that way in the main meeting. And that will be on all motions and all items that we do a vote on. Does that answer your question, Norm?
Yes, I think so.
Okay. Okay, next item that we'll be going over in the main board meeting is the NRCS snow report. Jordan Clayton will be with us on that, and he had a practice run yesterday. How did that go? Did we work out details and technology out for Jordan?
Yeah, he showed a couple slides. He actually, I think he did the present now from himself. We suggested that that's okay to do. It might be great to send a copy of his PowerPoint just in case something doesn't work. So anyway, yeah, I think it worked well.
Okay. Okay. Then we go into feasibility reports. The first feasibility report is RE 433 West Cache Irrigation Company. And that's Charles and Russell. Charles, do you have anything, or going to defer to Russell on that project?
Hang on just one sec. Marisa just noted in the chat that Norm dropped off. So Marisa's going to call Norm and get him back on the meeting.
Okay.
So there will be some ringing here until he picks up.
Mr. Chair, I'm just looking through the minutes and it says staff members present. I don't see Todd Stonley's name on that list, and I believe he was at the meeting also.
He was.
It called back, or they did.
So we'll need to make that change.
Yeah. Okay. So if Lindsay, if you can make those additions to the minutes.
I'm sorry.
Norm, are you okay? You got back on?
I think I'm back on.
Yeah, we got you.
Okay. I'm sure having problems today. I don't know what's going on.
Technology. Blame it on the internet.
Yeah.
Okay, we are on feasibility reports, West Cache Irrigation Company, Charles and Russell.
Yeah, just my only comment, and I'll let Russell run with it, is he and I visited the area, and it looks like a really good project. It's specifically assigned to the shareholders within that area that'll be paying back the loan. And if you look through the briefing book, it indicates that they would request a longer payback than the one recommended by staff. So turn it over to Russell.
That's about it, Charles. They're going to be abandoning the Azola ditch and piping the Hanson ditch. The previous project they have down in Newton was originally suggested staff suggested we give them 17 years repayment, and they requested 25 years for that project as well, and that was granted to them. And they've got an explanation of why they'd like to have 25 years over 15 years, and they will make that request to the board after I do the presentation. So I think that'll do it.
So do you have the numbers on that? And does Charles have the numbers on that?
Yes. It's actually in the report too, under
Okay.
cost sharing and repayment, what their
Okay.
actual request is.
Okay.
Yeah. And just comment, the shorter term costs them $41 each cents an acre versus an acre, and that is
Yes.
a fairly significant assessment increase for them.
Okay, board members, do any of you have any questions for Charles or Russell on the West Cache Irrigation Company? The feasibility report on that? Sounds like not. So are you prepared to make a motion on that, Charles?
Yes, I will, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you. Let's move on to feasibility report. The next item is Muddy Creek Irrigation Company, and this is Norman and Jacqueline.
Okay, this is Norman. Can you hear me okay?
Oh, yes, we can, Norm.
Okay.
Blaine, you got muted. I don't know who muted you, but you got muted, Blaine. So you should unmute.
My bad. I thought I was muting someone else. Sorry.
Okay,
Star
the
six,
Muddy
Blaine.
Creek. Are you ready to go then?
Yes.
Okay, the Muddy Creek project is just a kind of a continuation project. Back in 2018, we loaned them some money on that on a project to pipe their ditch and get it where it was under sprinkler system instead of flood irrigation. This is a continuation of that project. Jacqueline, maybe you can give more light and knowledge on that.
Yes, so this will be the fifth project that the board has funded for them. The first one was, if you look at your book, you should have a map that'll show the different projects that the board has funded. So this company is divided into two groups, the Emory series and the Moore Group Independent Canal. So this project is for the Emory series. In 2011, and the board provided financial assistance in 2008. Sorry, the board provided financial assistance for them to replace their intake structure that incorporated, and it also incorporated cementation basins. And then in 2011, it's what we're referring to as phase one for the Emory series, where they installed 6.3 miles of pipeline. So the repayment for these two projects was distributed to both of the different groups of the company. And then in 2018, the Emory series had their phase two, which consisted of extending the pipeline from Muddy Creek an additional 4.1 miles and installing regulating ponds. The repayment for this project is anticipated in 2040, and it's only for the Emory series shareholders. And in that same year, the Moore Group Independent Canal replaced approximately 1.9 miles of open canal and 2.9 miles of non-pressurized deteriorating pipe with a new pressurized pipeline. And that repayment is anticipated in 2043. And this cost is only for the Moore Group Independent Canal shareholders. And so the purpose, as Norm said, the purpose of this project is to, for phase three, is to extend the system another 7 miles that will deliver water to the east side of the Muddy Creek Irrigation Company. And it will also lower the water table and reduce salt loading. They received, so the cost for the cost sharing, it's about a $5,583,000 project. They've received $4,583,000 from the Bureau of Reclamation as a water salinity control grant. So they're asking the board for $850,000, which would be 15.2% of the total cost. And repayment is recommended at 1% interest over 23 years. With payment of approximately $41,600.
Okay, I have.
Probably have this,
Go ahead, Norm.
I have probably the same question I had before. Are the is the Moore group okay with this, where they're the smaller group?
So this one is for the Emory series. This one's the larger group. And I haven't heard anything from the company that they I mean, I haven't heard anything else from them regarding the staff recommendation for the repayment. So I think it'll work for them.
Okay.
Okay, I had a couple or three questions. One was, where did the 23-year period come from? It appears to maybe kind of align with when some of the other payments will be done, but just for curiosity, is that right? Where did the 23-year in the staff's recommendation come from?
The 23-year came from looking at the history of the different projects that they've received, and also by looking at the cost per acre for what it would increase for the Emory series. So with that, it would increase to about $785 per acre.
Okay, and then the question that follows that in my mind is, they're simultaneously, yes, the company is divided into two sections, the Moore part and the Emory part, but it still is one company, and the loan will be with the company, not with the individual segments. And we addressed this back in 2018 with the most recent loan. But can the company, which includes both entities, afford the 2 or 3 different payments that will be ongoing simultaneously? Was a question I had. Jacqueline or Norm?
Well, yeah, I'm going to have to defer to Jacqueline on that. They agreed to it before. I assume they're agreeing to this one.
Are they going to come before the board today and ask for an extended amount or lesser payment or anything like that?
No, they will not be asking the board for anything.
And I have not heard anything, Blaine.
Okay, so Jacqueline, are you comfortable that they can make the combined payments that they do have?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, board members, anyone else have any questions or discussion on this feasibility report on Muddy Creek Irrigation Company? Okay, Norm, are you prepared to make a motion then on this?
Yes, I'll be willing to make that motion, Blaine.
Okay, thank you. Next item on the agenda is committal of funds, and we've got the Weber Basin Water Conservancy District has a project, and Kyle and Ben have the lead on this.
Again, this is a project that, Weber Basin came before the group, it looked like back in October. And so they're just ready to move forward with it. I don't have anything else to add unless Ben does.
Only that the project started last fall. They're about ready to close on their bond, and they are prepared for committal of funds. The project is going to continue through the fall of 2022, and they've installed 750 meters approximately, and yeah, that's about it.
So the project has begun then, right now. It's already started then. And
that's correct.
They're using other funds, I would assume, than our funds, since we're just now going into the committal.
They do have a Water Smart grant, and but so far they've been using their own funds. to pay for project-related expenses. The money that they have spent on their project is going to go towards the amount of money that they would be depositing in their escrow for the bond. So.
Right. Okay, board members, any questions for Ben or Kyle on this project?
This is Kyle. I do have one more question. Just dawned on me where Ben mentioned that this is spread out over a 3-year period, but their paybacks start based on the fact that they are borrowing the full amount at the start, as opposed to having it phased in over the 3-year period. Is that correct?
Yeah, so the state is we are going to put in the full amount at bond closing because they've already contributed enough to the project where they have met their cost share obligations. So the state is going to put in their full portion of the cost share at bond closing, and then yeah, the project they are limited to fall and spring as far as construction goes, but so that will take them a couple of years.
Okay, thank you.
But Kyle, just so you know too, we actually have a bond closing scheduled for Tuesday. So they are far enough along with this already that the bond closing is next week, and we'll be providing, assuming you commit these funds today, we'll be providing all of it next Tuesday. So yeah, they'll be fine starting their repayments, even though this project will take a few years. So.
Mr. Chairman, also this, just a reminder to the board members, this is part of the secondary water meter funding that we are asked to do by the legislature, and this will come from those $10 million annually allocated funds.
Right. That was another question I was going to ask. Was this part of that? So thank you. Okay, good. Any other questions on this project? Okay, let's move along to special items. And the first item on the agenda, special items, is Fremont Irrigation Company over in Wayne County. That's in my area, and Tom Cox has been overseeing it, and we've approved. That's been a 2-phase project, but the most recent, they had to replace their spillway and put in a tow drain system at the toe of the dam, and as it turns out, the system they need to do for a tow drain is more extensive than what was initially thought. So they are coming back to the board for additional funding. It's a 2-part funding, one for additional grant money under the grants that are issued for dam safety. And then for the balance of what it would be, they're asking for a low interest loan for the balance. So with that introduction, Tom.
Well, Blaine, you summarized it fairly well. They were actually finished with the project. They had their final inspection last week, just finishing up on a few punch list items. But they need just a little bit more money, $290,000 in the grant loan mix. So we're giving them, or proposing that you commit $261 additional $1,000 in grant and $29,000 in loan, and the loan will be returned at 0% interest over 22 years. We're giving them just 2 more years longer than we had previously to make those payments. There is one comment on the cost sharing and estimate table. We have under the column listed the committed phase 2 cost sharing. That total should be $1,950,000 that we committed in 2018 rather than the new total project cost. But that's the only issue there is. If you have any questions, I'll be free to or feel free to ask them.
Now, Tom, I have not heard from Brian Peterson, their president, that he's going to ask for a different term or anything of you. They're agreeable to these terms, is my understanding. Is that yours also?
Yes, they're fine with that. In fact, on the dam safety projects, we normally don't even have them join in with the meeting, so they're not planning on doing that today.
Okay. Okay, board members, any questions on this particular project?
Nope.
Mr. Chairman, this is Wayne Anderson.
Yes.
Can you explain to me why for the first 3 years the payment's only 6,000 and then it jumps up to 14,000?
Tom?
I can cover that, Blaine. Yeah, the first 3 payments were based on the amount that they loaned on phase 1, and that was in about 7 or 8 years ago. So they were actually starting to make payments on that amount, and now we're pumping it up to cover up the total amount for phases 1 and 2.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions on it? Okay, now where that's my area, I'll need somebody to give a motion on that in my behalf. Any board members willing to do that?
Blaine, I could do it. This is Jim.
Okay, Jim, if Jim will give the motion on that then. Okay, thank you. Okay, next item is the West Warren and Warren WID expansion of scope. And Kyle, that's yours with Ben.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's kind of an unusual situation. Again, this is one that was approved before I came on the board, but I received a call from Steve Davis, and I understand he had already been talking with Ben about the fact that their original project came in way under budget. And so they have some needs of some other projects within the area. And so they have met and put together projects that would use up the balance of that funding that was left over from their original project. And so I think that's pretty well what this constitutes for the use of these funds. So I'll just let Ben further explain.
Okay, thanks, Kyle. Yeah, they have three additional improvements they wanted to make to their system. They wanted to put in 2,900 feet of 8-inch pipe to close the system loop. They wanted to put in 3,300 feet of 6-inch pipe. 3,300 feet of 8-inch pipe that will replace the 6-inch pipe. And then they want to install a redundant meter and pressure reducing valve station. So the closing system loops is, highly beneficial because it could improve water quality, decrease the system to breaks, vulnerability to breaks, because they can isolate broken lines. Increasing the pipe size from 6-inch to 8-inch will allow them to pass required fire flows. And then having a redundant meter and pressure reducing valve station. They purchase all their water from Weber Basin. So if they have a redundant connection to Weber's system, then they can isolate one connection should it need maintenance or repairs, and then still supply their system with the water that they need. So those costs or those improvements, I think the cost estimate on that was approximately $550,000, and there's about $700,000 left. And so what they wanted to ask the board to do is increase the scope of the project to include these improvements.
Anything else on that, Kyle?
No, I don't have anything. It's just my first question to them when they called was with the additional funds that they were requesting and the additional projects, if it fell within the scope of the original, and apparently it does. And so I think it's a good use of monies, worthwhile project.
So let me make it clear that the funds that will be used. So this was a bond project. So the funds that will be used for this project are already committed to the applicant, and are already in their escrow, and so there won't be any additional funds, basically.
Okay.
Right. I think that's a good clarification, Ben. The money is already sitting in their escrow account ready for additional project costs. So if you didn't allow them to do this, we just want this money to come back and be a prepayment on the loan. But as it is now, we're just saying, go ahead and take the money we already gave you that's sitting in your account and use it to do more project. So.
Good. Any questions for Kyle or Ben? Okay, Kyle, are you willing to make a motion on this?
Yes, I will be. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next project on our agenda is Blanding City, a recommittal of funds, and that's Norm and Ben. Norm?
Okay, this is the ongoing project that's going to be going forever, it seems like. I think they're letting the asphalt cure, where they're going to be putting this pipe under the ground. This is a very needed project here in the community. When it does rain, it rains a lot, and we get a lot of storm drainage. This is down in part of it's going to be used down in a newer section of town where they've built several medical facilities, and it's created quite a load on the wastewater system, not the wastewater, the stormwater system when it does rain down there in buckets full. I have one question related to this, though, is where I live in the city and therefore am a benefactor of that project. Is it wise for me to make a motion?
Todd, what do you think? Shalane?
I think we're dueling who's going to unmute each other first. I'll let Shalane.
No, I was waiting for you, Todd. We both did the same thing. I don't know that that's really a problem. Although if you feel like you shouldn't, I mean, I think it's one of those. If you feel at all like you shouldn't, you should probably err on the side of caution and allow someone else to make the motion. You know, Ben. I mean, this is one of those. Ben can clarify if he wants to. You've already committed the funds on this project. Everything's
right,
ready to go. We're actually asking you to reduce the amount. So this is a very different project, and I actually have some additional information to talk to you about later. But yeah, so I don't think it would be a problem, especially if you've done the previous motions. Norm, I think it'd be just fine.
Okay, I'm comfortable in going ahead.
Should be fine.
Probably want to hear from Ben on anything he's got to add on this project, though.
Yeah, I'd just like to say, just like Shalane said just a moment ago, funds were committed to this project in the last board meeting, the March board meeting, and there was a whole situation where they solicited bids and did not receive any bids the first time, and so they had to solicit.
Yeah, actually January. Sorry, committed in January.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway, they solicited bids, and the second time they got bids that were below what was committed for funding. So yeah, they are coming to ask the board to reduce the committed funding. They feel like that'd be a better situation for them financially. So
this has been an interesting set of several of these that they're under cost. We usually don't deal with things like that. It's usually the other way around, like with the Fremont irrigation. Usually they're coming asking for more. Board members, any questions on this particular project for Norm or Ben or Shalene or anybody else? Okay, with that being the case, then Norm, are you comfortable with making a motion, or would you rather have someone else?
No, I'm comfortable with making the motion. I feel far enough removed from it that I'm okay.
Okay. Okay, we'll do it that way then. Next one, Bear River Canal Company. Charles, this will be you and Ben, and we're all anxiously awaiting to hear about the canal break, which is part of this. So, Charles, you start, and Ben, you carry on.
Okay, well, originally we weren't planning on coming to the board for as many additional funds as we are today, but Monday morning at 3:00 in the morning, the Hammond Canal failed after running water for approximately 7 days. And so we are in quite a lurch on the Hammond Canal. We've got 11,000 acres of ground that are going dry presently, and we are unable to use our full water right because of that as well. Construction's moving rapidly, and we're hoping Sunday or Monday we may have water back in the system, but we're incurring some considerable construction costs, and I appreciate Ben and Shalane's rapid response to our request for help with funding for this emergency project. I'll turn it to Ben.
Thanks, Charles. Yeah, I'd just like to mention that, so the Bear River Canal Company, they were actually going to approach the board in this meeting today to ask for a reduction in funding for various reasons. But because of the canal breach, they're actually, we had to totally rewrite the report and redo the whole thing. So now we're coming back for an increase of funding for this canal breach project. So I don't think I have a whole lot of additional information to add to what Charles.
Mr. Chairman, if it would be okay, Charles or Ben, would you explain to the board members where this is at in relation to Cutler and those kind of things so they know where it's at? I know Ben's got some slides and maybe even a video that we're going to try to show this afternoon, but just a quick update of where it's at location-wise.
Yeah, it's approximately a mile and a half below Pacific Corp's dam structure on the south side of the Bear River, and we've had a number of failures along here. The canal itself is over 130 years old, and you'd think if it had gone 130, it ought to go 131, but it won't. It collapsed in an area where the structure had some very unique hand cobbled masonry work to support the canal there, and it failed through that structure. So it's in a part of the canyon where the slope up the sides is very, very steep, and it's not as dramatic as some of that stuff down around St. George, but it is very steep for us and been quite difficult getting equipment in there and getting it repaired, but it's moving along well.
I will have I pulled some snapshots from Google Earth showing the location of the breach in relation to Cutler Reservoir. So in the presentation this afternoon, we'll be able to see almost exactly where it's at.
Okay, thank you, Ben.
Thank you, appreciate that. Now in the email that was sent around from Charles and Shalane and everybody on Monday of this week, it talked about that you were estimating, Charles, that it might take $100,000 and you were asking for a reduction. What we have in our board package is you were going to, the recommendation, staff's recommendation was that reduce the payments from $292,000 down to $250,000, a reduction of $42,000. And then the email said that to make it the $100,000 that you would need, rather than reducing it $42,000, you would need an additional $58,000. So is the $100,000 estimate still correct, or what will the recommendation be, and what is being asked for today?
We're requesting, we're not sure on our construction costs on it, and so we are going to ask for $200,000 rather than $100,000 for repair to this section. Hopefully not needing it, but we don't want to be underfunded with the emergency at hand.
So would that 200 factor in the 42 that you were asking for a reduction, meaning you're asking for an additional 158?
Yes.
That's correct, yes.
Okay.
Actually, not exactly. Can I clarify? Okay. So let me explain what happened. And it's in the old report what we were asking for. After the board committed an additional $292,000, the applicant said, we can't take $292,000. We want $250,000. That's what we can contract for. And we said, okay, that's within what the board committed. So we wrote the amendment for 250,000, but you had committed 292,000. So we had this 42,000 that we were going to say, we're going to ratify this change today. We were going to ask you to ratify the change and put that back into the state coffers. But we still technically have that 42,000 committed. So when the cost estimate for the improvement for these repairs came in at about 200,000, we looked at that and said, what's the board share? 85% of 200,000 is 170,000 minus 42 comes to 128,000 is what we're asking for the board today. So because we still have the 42,000 committed from January that is not contracted but is committed, we're asking for an additional 128,000. The total from the board will be 799,000 to be purchased at 0% interest over 15 years with annual payments of approximately $53,300. So I don't know if you all got the updated report or if we did not get that sent out to you. If we didn't, we can do that before the board meeting.
I have not seen it. I know, have any of the other board members seen that yet?
Okay,
No.
we got it. We got it replaced in the packet that's on the website. Lindsay says she'll send that out right now. Perfect. Thank you, Lindsay.
Okay, board members, any questions on this?
Mr. Chairman, I think Charles had another comment.
Okay, Charles.
Mr. Chairman, I haven't seen that documentation either, and I'd appreciate Lindsay forwarding that out to everybody. Additionally, I will declare a conflict of interest as I am on the board of directors of Bear River Canal Company, and it affects me quite directly. So I would appreciate it if maybe Juliet would make a motion on this. It's going to be very helpful to have the electronic updated version of this to keep the verbiage straight.
Yeah, Charles, I was actually going to jump in and say I'd be happy to do that. And then if I just get it in my email, I'll print it out and read from that.
Okay, I'd appreciate that.
Okay, we'll plan on Juliet making the motion then. Is there any other questions or discussion on this?
Can I add one other bit of information?
Please.
And that is, I think that it's appropriate for the board to be aware that as far as the repairs go on this canal breach, because of the time scale, there was no engineering design that was able to be performed for the repair. And so JUB Engineering is, as I understand, assisting the canal company in making decisions on their canal repair, but there is no actual engineering design for the repair.
How's that work, Todd, when we have that situation? We've had it before on emergencies, I know.
We've had it before on emergencies. It just becomes a design build, I think.
Okay.
Yes, as Ben mentions, we've had 3 JUB engineers there on site from time to time.
So, Mr. Chair, I maybe a quick report from Ben on this. I looked like he turned his video off, but Ben, they are current on their canal safety management plan and those types of things. So this was emergency and unforeseen and all of those things. So.
Okay, good. Any other questions?
Mr. Chairman, before we move on then, so with that explanation of additional engineering costs, will that add to the amount of money that they're requesting, or will those fees be covered in the amount that's being requested?
Charles? Ben?
My belief is that that will cover the engineering costs as well.
Yes, that's our understanding, is that the 200,000 total should include construction, engineering, consulting, and contingencies, we hope. So.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, good question. Any other questions on this? Okay, moving along in Sanpete County, there's a Silver Creek Reservoir Company. It's over by Moroni in Sanpete County. They have an application that they have shown no interest in on some piping. It's going to be proposed that they withdraw it. Jacqueline, do you have anything to add to that?
No, it's just been an inactive project and they're not moving forward with it.
And to my knowledge, they don't have any intent on moving forward. If they do desire to go forward in the future, file new application at that point in time is the thought process on that. Anybody have any questions or discussion on that? With that, I'll need someone to make a motion on that where it's in my area.
Do you want me to make it again for you?
Yes, Jim, if you would, please. I would appreciate that. Okay, we have new applications. We've got a couple of them. The first is for American Fork City, and while we won't be taking a formal vote on those or any motions today, Wayne and Jacqueline, would you like to just explain to us what these are all about? The one on American Fork City?
Yeah, I'm going to have to defer to Jacqueline because I've read through their application and everything. Looks like a good project. As of right now, I've not met with the people of American Fork City. So Jacqueline, do you want to give a little more detail?
I'll let me pipe in here because I don't think Jacqueline has much more information either. In fact, just this week, the city resubmitted their application, made some modifications and resubmitted it. So I don't think it's changed much. They just have a very large project. As you can see, the cost estimate in this report says it's over $21 million total. I think the new application might be even higher than that. So they've got a lot of work to do. So
apparently they've got quite a few old lines that need to be replaced and undersized lines, and so that's basically what the project entails.
Yes.
And where this is just a new application, it will go through the feasibility and study process.
Right.
But I had all kinds of questions of what other funding venues are they looking at? Do we have money in our funding to have the ability to fund over $20 million? And it just raised all kinds of questions for me personally as I looked at this application, just the information that's there. So I assume that in the feasibility process that staff will address those issues.
Yes, for sure. There is a lot to be done to see where this goes. This is very preliminary at this point, just mostly for your information.
Right.
Yes, it's for your information, and there are several options that are out there. So we will look at all options and go from there.
Okay, does anyone else have anything you want to raise on this new application? Midway Irrigation Company then, Wayne, that's up in your area, and that's a new application also?
No, the same goes for this. I haven't had a chance to meet with the Midway City people. They do, however, want to install 750 secondary meters. So it's right in line with the projects that we've been funding. And here again, as time goes and we get more details on the project and so forth, we'll be coming back to the board to run it through the process.
Right. This one hasn't even been assigned a project manager yet. Just to be honest, I'm a little bit swamped right now, and staff is a little bit busy, and so I haven't even got this one assigned. But their application stated that they do have Water Smart money or are pursuing Water Smart money and don't even plan to construct this until fall of 2021. So it's not been the highest on my priority list, just for your information.
Okay, more to come then.
Yes.
Yeah, and she's had to ride herd on me too to make sure that I was doing what I needed to do. So
That's a big job, Wayne.
it is.
Okay, anything else on this one before we move on? Planning report, we'll have Laura Haskell will give us a planning report on the drought planning and collaboration. Anything we need to know up before the board meeting on this?
Just it'll be a brief presentation about what we've been doing on drought planning last year and a half since Laura Haskell was assigned that task, and there's some good, exciting things going on that you'll want to pay attention to. So,
yeah, I was just exactly, Todd. I'm just going to echo exactly that. There's a lot of new and exciting things been going on, and we wanted to make sure you are all updated.
Okay, good. Thank you. We'll also have a Lake Powell pipeline report from Joel on committal of additional funds. And so Joel, if you want to tell us what we'll need there, and I'm sure we'll need a motion and a vote on that one also. So Joel.
Yeah, the Bureau of Reclamation has been working feverishly on this schedule for the Lake Powell Pipeline Project environmental impact statement. They are the lead agency, and they're coordinating with the other federal agencies and working late nights and weekends trying to keep on this timeline for this project, and they are doing so. It's an amazing feat. Given the time and the effort that's going into this, they're burning through their budget, and they need additional money. And as you can recall, they've kind of been coming to us every few months for more funds. And knowing that they've got this push here to get through the draft EIS and final EIS, so over the next several months, they thought it might make more sense to commit a larger amount at one time. But in the past, I think they've been coming to us for somewhat smaller amounts, $250,000 to $500,000, and they thought in this one, let's go for $1 million to ensure that they can get through the end of this process without hopefully needing to come back in the next few months. So they're asking for $1 million to continue their work. The work is being led out of the Provo area office. We're very pleased with the effort that's going on there, being led by Rick Baxter and his team. They've also got specialists in other offices contributing to the work in the EIS, and then they're obviously coordinating with the other federal agencies. They've also got sub-consultants helping them because it's such a great effort. I guess some of the additional details I'll share with the board, but that kind of just gives some background as to why it seems like a larger amount than they've had in the past is because of this extensive amount of work that they're doing, and hoping that it gets them a little bit further before they have to come back again. Any questions on that at this point?
Are you going to go into any explanation or anything on the implications of Kane County withdrawing from the Lake Powell pipeline project?
I do plan to discuss that decision that they made and some of the reasons behind that and what it means for us going forward. And I'll also just give a kind of just a general update of where we're at in the project right now. So I'll plan to do that in the board meeting if that sounds good to you.
Yeah, it does. Okay, any questions for Joel? Okay, with that, it sounds like we will need a motion and a vote on committing an additional $1 million in funding to the Bureau of Reclamation. Is anyone willing to make that motion?
It probably should be me, Blaine, since it's down in this area.
Okay, so Jim will make that motion. Do you have the motion? Do you have the verbiage for it, Jim?
I think so. Joel sent me thing through here a little while ago. And I suppose I can just use that, can I, Joel?
I think that would be Jim if that works for you.
Okay.
Okay, board members, any other questions for on the Lake Powell Pipeline project at this time? Okay, it's not on the formal agenda, but I was curious. I haven't looked recently. Last meeting, I was reviewing last meeting when we approved signing the change application for the water right for the lake for the pipeline. I haven't looked recently. Has that been advertised yet? Has that process started?
Yes, it started at the end of April, 1st of May, and it will be out there until I think May 27th, open for public comment.
Okay, good. Okay, with that, then we're down to the point. We'll have in our main meeting director's report in our regular meeting, and Todd, you'll have the floor at that point in time to go over things. And I know that as far as on one thing that we talked about in our briefing meeting last month was we asked staff to come up with a proposal to study anyway this COVID-19 and see if any adjustments in payments. One of the other state agencies had some adjustments in payments, and the staff was going to look at that. And so with that, Todd, we would like in this meeting to have a report from staff on any items that you think would be appropriate to discuss at this.
Okay, that's great. I've got about 3 of them, maybe 4, maybe 5, something like that. So we'll work towards that. Maybe before we get into the potential of that you just talked about, the COVID response, maybe I'd have Joel just go through a quick status of funds update, just where we are right now.
That'd be great.
Yes. I'm just trying to find which tab I have the board folder under. The revolving construction fund is really tight. In fact, we don't really have any available funds right now for new projects in the revolving fund. And so we are, as we've mentioned, I think in the past couple of board meetings, we're trying to redirect projects that maybe even would normally come from the revolving construction fund and to directing them to the conservation and development fund, and hoping that allows that revolving fund to recover. So that fund is pretty tight right now. The city water loan fund, given the projects we have there, we still have about $4 million available that we anticipate could go towards new projects. So we could receive additional applications for cities. The Conservation and Development Fund has funds available. We do have a few applications that some of them we've had for a number of years that are for larger projects that could deplete some of those funds. We've also been in conversations with additional projects that have larger price tags. And so depending on the timing of which of these larger projects go forward, that funding could be used, but there is funding available right now. So it's kind of first come, first serve to whoever steps up and says they're ready to go forward. So I think we're in pretty good shape, other than the revolving fund being very low right now. So that's my status of funds update.
Thanks, Joel.
This is Wayne. In that conservation development fund, though, it looks like to me it says at end of year balance of listed projects were fully paid. Now I understand that you just explained that some of those projects aren't being done or whatever. So it looks like we have a deficit in that account. What's that 34,799,000 in brackets?
So yes, that would be if all of those anticipated projects go forward. I can think of a few of them that have been on the books there for quite a few years, and we're just not sure if they will go forward. If suddenly all of those decided they were going to go forward, yeah, we would potentially be short on funds.
Is there anything we can do to go back to some of these real old projects then and and try and reconcile those. And if they are going to still try and do them, if they're not, so we can clean up our books a little bit.
We can check with them.
That is a great suggestion. Yep.
Thank you.
I also had a question on this secondary meter system, and I should know, but I've got a brain cramp going on right now. Which one of those funds are those coming out of?
The secondary meters are coming out of the Conservation and Development Fund.
Okay. That's what I was thinking, but I had a brain cramp.
I've viewed this at one point as well, and it's completely escaped me. But Joel, can you remind us when there was like a redirection of a portion of the earmark somewhere else? Was that for the Conservation and Development Fund, or is it the?
Yeah, that was the sales tax. That was the sales tax earmark that came in, and part of that percentage change. We used to get 94% and 6% water right, and about 3 years ago that was changed to 85-15, and water rights is using that for their adjudication program.
Okay, is that in part impacting the construction fund, or is
it affects the C&D fund? Yes.
It's the C&D. Okay, all right, thank you.
This is Todd Stoneley, Chairman Ipsen. I just wanted to make a comment about what Wayne had said. One of those projects that I believe is on that list is an $80 million request from Weber Basin. I wasn't able to pull it up to verify that, but is that one still on there, that list?
No, that is not on the project's authorized list, Todd. That is on the additional future funds needing list. And so
right, the one that's the biggest on that project's authorized is the Uinta Water Conservancy District. RE 316 is a $36.5 million project. So that's been on the books for quite some time, and so that's the biggest dollar amount.
We have contacted them within the last year or so, and they've told us to leave those on, but it's probably about time that we ask again for some of those bigger ones.
I think as requested by the board, we will contact each one of them and see where we stand and what we can do, where we go from here, and we'll get back to you.
That would be good. Okay, so we went over the funding. What have you got next, Todd?
Okay, while we're on funding, let me just tell you that Candace and Jim Egbert and I have had a lot of fun in the last several weeks. Not really, but we've been looking at potential budget cuts to our budgets. We've had to come up with a 2%, 5%, and a 10% budget cut to our operating budget. And that has been submitted to the department. The department has looked over that and will be working with the legislature, our appropriation committee, as well as special sessions that are to come in June about where that will go and what that will be. Now that is to our operating budget. We don't know what will happen, if anything, or something will happen to our loan funds if we have monies there that could be swept, similar to what happened in 2008, where money was taken to run. So there's a lot still to be determined and decided. We've pretty much been able to keep our staff funding there, except for maybe 1 or 2 positions that are not filled currently. So we're working through that, and we'll know more here in June, I hope. So if that makes sense. And Juliet, you were probably involved in 2008 big time, and I don't know if you want to add anything to that or what. And yeah, I can see you sweating already, right?
Well, I mean, I don't know what to say. I mean, I guess just it is what it is, and it helps with planning. And in 2008, I would just say that we were, at least from a kind of a perspective of a fiscal office planning, trying to understand all options. So
right,
whatever that's worth. But my hope is that.
And all options are on the table, you know, from one-time funds to ongoing to whatever, to new programs, to old programs, and it's all being discussed. So we're just going through that process, and just an update to you board members on that. So. Okay, let's go back to Shalane. I think she had a couple potential options or ideas for some new board guidelines, whether it's the COVID response or what we do with some bond monies like we got requested. So, Shalane?
Yes, thanks, Todd. Thanks. Yeah, I actually have 2 draft policies that I would like to email out to all of you board members today for you to consider adopting at your next meeting in June. One is the COVID-19 policy. We basically took CIB's policy and modified it for your purposes. CIB gives grants, and then every loan that they do is a bond. So it's different from what you do. You do purchase agreements and bonds. So I modified theirs slightly to be appropriate for the Board of Water Resources, but wrote up a policy that's very similar to theirs that would allow someone to fill out a request form. It would have to be approved by their governing body, and they could sign and submit that to you. And staff would be allowed, before even meeting with you, to work with them to do whatever adjustments are necessary, and then provide you with a report at each meeting stating who had asked, how much money was being deferred. And essentially what it would come down to, I mean, purchase agreements would be amended to just push all the payments back a year. That's what we usually do when people come and say, hey, we can't make our payment this year, can you help us? Bonds are a whole other animal. So the state treasurer's been involved working with some bond attorneys, one private and the one that counsels the state on all of its bond matters. I mean, us, CIB, drinking water. Bill Prater is his name, and he's been helping to come up with how that would actually work. Bonds can't be amended. So what would happen is there would be an issuing of a refunding bond for a single year's payment. And basically that we'd have to go through and figure out what that payment would be at the end and issue this subordinate bond to your existing bond that would cover the payment for the current year they're asking for a deferral. But I have written up a simple policy statement that I can email to you, and you all can look over, request changes if you'd like them before the next meeting. The second policy is much shorter and simpler, and it goes to the blanding issue that we're addressing today, coming to you for a recommittal of funds. Essentially what happened when blanding got their bids, and it was significantly lower amount, a lot of people were saying, well, can't you just do the lower amount? They didn't want to be on the hook for their share of the higher portion, and they also didn't want to be tied into higher repayment. But because your action, the board's action, actually includes a dollar amount, a percentage of the project, and repayment terms of approximate payments for so many years, we didn't feel like we could just modify a bond project. Now, Bear River, we felt like the 250,000 was not that much less than 292,000, and adjusting repayments fit within what you had committed. So we were just going to ask you to ratify the change we had made to the amendment. But on a bond project where we were talking, $300,000 less than what was committed, and modifying the repayment, reduced their payments by about $10,000 or $11,000 every year, I think. So we didn't feel like we could do that without your permission, without coming to you for a recommittal of funds. So what this policy is asking you is if you would adopt a policy that would allow the staff to work within your guidelines when someone asks for less money than what was committed. we could work with them, come up with a modified repayment, and then come to you and tell you what we did. So these are the two policies that I'm going to email you out today. They're just drafts for your information, your consideration. And if you've got changes, let me know. If you don't like them, let me know. And we'll come up with something. If you're okay with them, then we'll come up with something to adopt in June. So.
Shalane, this is Kyle.
Yes.
And I represent the board on the CIB board, and so I've been involved in those discussions with the policy changes regarding COVID-19 payment policy and such. And then in the meeting last week, they spent quite a bit of time talking about the bonding agencies, and that those that they'll be working with were willing to give a consideration of a lower amount from what the traditional costs are associated with bonds. So the question is, are those fees required to be paid by the applicant? And if so, is there any discussion about negotiating with them regarding a concession on the fees?
Yes, well, I think I had conversations with Bill Prater this week, and it's my understanding that the legal documents they've come up with and the process to defer a bond payment, the process they've come up with, it would be, they really wouldn't have to hire a bond attorney. They would be able to just work with Bill Prater, who consults with the state. He's created these kind of generic documents that it would be fill in the blank. And so his fees are really low. So the cost associated would be very small. And I don't know if it would, I haven't got the exact details yet, if that would be added to the cost of this refunding bond, or if the entities would just be expected to pay that small amount, but they would not have to pay the fees associated with hiring a bond attorney and doing a whole new issuance. They wouldn't have to notice in the paper. The process that they're talking about would keep things simple and inexpensive. So.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you. Todd?
So yes, there was that. We've been working on it. I had a couple phone calls directly with the state treasurer, and we actually just got something from him also late last night. And so we're looking at that and going through that even further, which is additional guidance. So Shalane will get that out to you here shortly. So, and Marisa, are you ready, willing to give a quick update on the Bear River development, please?
Yes, now I'm just trying to make, does my mic work okay?
Yes.
I always have problems with that. Yeah, it's not formally on the agenda about on the briefing meeting about Bear River development. We are going to give you a more formal update next month. We need to kind of look at a few things when there's real estate transactions about whether or not there's a closed meeting. But just want to let you know that it is ongoing. We have closed on our first property, and I'm trying to still decide whether or not that's exciting. Because now we got to figure out what to do with it. So there's another one in process, and then there's a couple others that are lingering out there. People are looking at the offers and trying to decide what they want to do. And then also we're separating from the formal our formal partnership with UTA, and we've got our consultant with HDR. They're helping out. We're looking at possibly doing a couple other contracts for some of the, appraisals and things like that. So we're looking into that. That being said, we're still in contact with UTA because there's still properties that both of us are interested in. There's actually one right now that we're gonna be doing the negotiation with the owner, and then if the owner chooses to sell, then we will actually work with UTA to give them some of that area. So we'll give you some more formal and some actual details in the next board meeting, when we've got a little bit better handle of where things are with the UTA partnership and everything. Candace, is there anything, or Shalane, you both have been pretty involved with us on this. Do you, any thoughts or other things you want to bring up on that?
I don't have any write-off. This is Candace. But yeah, I appreciate all of Maurice's hard work working through all of this new learning that we are having to. She's done a great job of digging in and figuring it out. So really appreciate her efforts.
We have a great consultant, and we're still working. Thank you. We have a great consultant, and we're still working with the surveying contractor consultant that is signed with UTA, but we are in the scope of work. So we're still working with them, and they've been fantastic. So got some really good people working on this.
Thanks, Marisa, for the update. Yeah, these three have done a yeoman's job, and I'm sure Todd Stonley can't wait to get involved in the process too in his new title. So we're working on that, and we had some success, but we'll keep working on it.
Didn't you tell him he's in charge of the next negotiation on the next property?
I think you just did.
We'll leave it to our right-of-way consultant.
You said you had good people working on it. Why do you want me?
We'll add to it. We'll add to it. Okay, Blaine, just one more thing, or Mr. Chairman, one more thing. Randy, it's getting close to the end of our fiscal year, and Randy's asked me to let you know if you have any travel reimbursements for projects that you've been out on, please get those to him so he can get those reimbursed for you all. So we need to make sure we're timely on our fiscal component, and before we get our budgets cut and those kind of things, we need to make sure we pay our bills somewhat. So that's what I have to report in the briefing meeting. Anything else? I'm going to open this up to Candace or Joel or Todd. Is there anything that I've forgotten for now?
This is Candace, and I think you covered it. Unless there's any questions that the board has, I'd be happy to answer them.
Mr. Chairman, I don't know what to do for sure. The next board meeting is scheduled on June 18th. I think right now we probably ought to just plan on having another commander in charge with the headset. You've done a great job. We'll continue to do it, but we'll probably just plan on having another virtual meeting until we hear otherwise. We are watching the governor's COVID stuff daily. We've got staff that are doing a yeoman's job and women's job of work. Where it's hard to know where everybody's at one point in time, but they're doing an awesome job. We've kept the office open based on the executive staff covering every day, as well as supplementing that with managers and others that are coming in. And I just want to put a heartfelt thanks out to my staff, our staff, your staff, for all the many things that they're doing in getting through this. As we move from red to orange to yellow to green, we are looking at hand sanitizers, wipes, masks, gloves for folks to come back to work when they come back and to be very safe. I just placed more hand sanitizer on every desk this morning, and anyway, we're trying to get through it. It's been kind of crazy, but we're there, and you know, just kudos go out to the staff for all the things that they're doing. So.
Okay, anything else from staff? I would like to, from the perspective of the board, thank Todd, thank you and all of your staff. I know that these are challenging times, and I see a lot of, I've had a fair amount of interaction from my position with signing contracts and looking at different things. And there's a lot going on right now in spite of the COVID thing, the restrictions there. I just really appreciate everything that Todd, you and your staff, each and every one of them are doing. Thank you.
Thanks, Blaine. That's good to hear. You know, just signing documents sometimes really difficult at best. We've got Adobe figured out. I think we've got eSign figured out. We've got FedEx figured out. We've got all sorts of stuff, and so thank you for all you're doing also, because it hasn't been easy, and we're getting through it one day at a time.
One day at a time. And this right here is what we do at my work in all common areas and hand sanitizer. And yes, this next week they're going to have all of the employees where I work do the testing and all of that. So we're living in interesting times right now, and we're all in it together, and we'll get through it. So, and then
Todd's. I'm sorry, Blaine. I just wonder if Todd's figured all that stuff out. Could he come figure out the new math and help my kids? I'd appreciate that. And the 5 different platforms they have to use to submit something.
Yes, indeed.
I think Todd Stonley, that was a request to you. There you go.
Yeah, that was Todd Stonley. He's smiling. That was one on my final list, was June 18th. It sounds like for now, unless we hear otherwise, it will be a virtual meetings again for our next board meeting. I'm assuming that Randy Staker is going to be at our regular board meeting to give us the report of any public comments that have been received.
And I think Randy's on the call, and Randy, would you respond to that? Because maybe he'll say something different than he said last time. Maybe he won't.
Or maybe not.
I was hoping he'd practice and say yes instead of no. But yes, Randy is prepared to read in any public comments as needed. So.
Okay. So again, board members, when we get in the regular meeting, when it comes time for roll call or motions, when you make a motion, if you will identify yourself, and if you second the motion, if you will identify yourself, and then after we've had our discussion and any comments put into the record, all of that sort of stuff, when we get ready to have any voting on any motions that are made, I will just go through for the roll call, just like we did to start this meeting. I'll start with Charles, and then Kyle, and then Juliet, and then Wayne, and then Randy, and then Norman, and then Jim. We'll just go through in that same order on all of the voting for any motions that take place.
Yes, Blaine, thank you. And then Lindsay just put in the chat component when you're speaking, maybe just to help her when she's going through the minutes, just declare who it is that is talking, whether it's you or me or whoever, that would help. So.
Yeah, that will definitely help, Lindsay.
Mr. Chair, this is Kyle. And thinking back of Norm Johnson's earlier comments regarding the minutes, and just looking back over them, I think what his question was should we note on there, it says motion passed unanimously or something to that effect, should we indicate that it was a roll call vote unanimously?
Yes, we will get that changed.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, it's a good comment. Thank you. Okay, before we close this meeting, does anyone have any other things that we need to go over in the capacity of our briefing meeting?
Mr. Chairman, this is Jim.
Where's lunch?
At your house. Go through the door there, Kyle. Okay, Jim, I think you had something.
Yes, I had a question with all of this COVID stuff that's going on and budgets and different things. I have not pushed Washington County for that October tour because I know all of the speculations going on is kind of like watching weather. It may or may not be true. but they're talking about maybe that coming back in the fall. Do we need to consider changing that tour to the next year? Or should I keep encourage them to be prepared? Or I just haven't talked to them because I haven't known what to do.
What's everybody's input on that?
I would just say I don't know that we really can plan anything at this point, and I think the most that we can plan right now is that this is how we'll be holding meetings for the foreseeable future. So I don't know if it would be worthwhile to try to plan a tour until we know that it's okay to be out and about.
So,
Well,
so
that's why I
Jim,
was
what I
wondering
would
if
do
we
is
should.
I would, we ought to, maybe you and I can talk with Zach or the district down there and just say, hey, let's tentatively leave it on in case things change, but also know that it's pretty variable, that it might not happen. I know that they are getting some pressure. The governor's office is getting pressure from Washington County to go to a yellow level. And so that would be changing the way things are happening down there. So I don't know. We just need to probably play it by ear for right now. But yes, you are right. I've heard the same things, whether we're going to spike in the fall, whether we're going to go back. So, your guess is as good as mine.
Right. Well, that's why I wondered if we need to tell them to plan for June of next year instead of October of this year.
Well,
and they are pushing for
right.
yellow
Hopefully
back.
we could do it maybe in the March meeting too. Assuming water users happens. It's been canceled or postponed this year until next year. They were going to try to do it in July. That has now been canceled or postponed until March of 2021.
Yeah.
Yeah, it might could coordinate there. I don't know about the yellow. Once they opened up anybody to come here, it's combat fishing around the reservoirs. There's so many people that they've had to shut down Sand Hollow and Quail and Gunlock, shut the waterfalls off, put it coming out from under the dam because it's just lots of people. And if you go out there, you're a foreigner because everybody's Nevada parked around there. Once in a while, you see a Utah one.
Mr.
But
Chairman,
I wondered about that, how they can prepare.
what I could maybe say is maybe we could do something to the effect of a virtual tour and do something prepared like that. So let us check into doing a virtual tour maybe also, and that could be an option.
Yeah.
I don't even want to guess your virtual ages or real ages, but some of you might be in the vulnerable category. I might be in the vulnerable category, and so we just need to be really careful with what we do.
Yes.
Yeah, there's no might on my age.
Yeah. Some of us are way over the hill.
Well, why don't we just leave that one? Todd, you and Jim correlate that between both of you, if you will.
All right, we'll do that between Jim and I and Washington County and our staff.
Right. Yeah, or even you and Zach.
Okay.
You two decides fine with me.
Zach and I chat a bunch, so we'll chat with him. So.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, I am just looking at my email and I see that we have the draft board policies. I have that in my inbox from Shalane. I have from Lindsay the updated board packet with that project RE 420 that's going to be different over in Charles area. And then I have a motion on the additional funding from Joel. That's in my inbox also. So I have all three of those sitting, waiting for me to look at and print off after we get done with this meeting. So hopefully each of you have those three things in your email inboxes also. Does anyone have anything else?
I do. I have just one thing before everyone goes. I just might mention that if you had trouble connecting today, if you're afraid you might have trouble connecting, if you're going to disconnect from this meeting now and go have your lunch, please come back 15 minutes before the meeting. to make sure you can get connected. You don't have to sit here for the 15 minutes, but at least you can make sure you're connected. Then you can go do whatever you need to do and just be back before 1 o'clock. But if you try, at least make sure you can try to connect by 12:45, then we know if you've got any issues and can make sure we call you or do whatever's necessary to get you back on for the actual board meeting. Thanks.
Okay.
Jolene, do you prefer we just stay on? Just leave the computer turned on and on it?
Really, that's up to you. This connection, this meeting, they'll stop recording, but the meeting link will still be here. So it's the same link. If you'd be more comfortable with that, sure, mute your video, mute your audio, and go have your lunch, and then you're still connected. Marisa had something to say.
Yeah, I checked in with Candace and she directed me to Paul, and Paul said you can stay in. His concern is if your computer goes to sleep, or if someone else in your house needs your computer, then you may lose that connection. So that's where his suggestion was, getting on around 12:45. And even if you're comfortable getting on, if you get on at 12:45, that I'm getting thumbs up from Paul or Carmen. I don't know who it is. And but if you get on at 12:45, then that will help us admit the other 20, 30 people that are getting on with the actual board. Yeah, it was Carmen, I guess, with the actual board meeting.
And also a reminder that, you know, this is for folks to dialogue directly through the board component. There is also a YouTube link that we don't know who is on that link. Anybody could be. It's a public link. And so this is just the link for the board members and the project sponsors.
And the YouTube won't start until Paul gets the green light at sometime 1 or beyond.
Right. And also any of the little comments that you make are part of the record.
Yeah.
The little written ones.
The chat comments.
The chat comments are part of the record. So we'll all use it if we do log out, and I plan on logging out of my machine so that it doesn't lock up on me. But however you do it, make sure you're back on by 12:45. And also it will be the same link that you used to get on this morning. It's not the public link. It's the same link as this. So anybody have anything else? Do we need a motion to close this meeting here? We'll entertain a motion to close our briefing meeting then.
Motion to adjourn, Charles Holmgren.
Okay.
Second, Wayne Anderson.
Okay, do we need to vote on that or Todd? Okay, let's have a roll call vote then. We had a motion by Charles to adjourn and we had a second by Wayne Anderson. So going through roll call vote.
Charles Holmgren, aye.
Norman Johnson, aye.
Blaine, you got muted again for some reason. Can't hear you.
Wow, how'd that happen? Okay, Kyle Stevens, Weber River.
Aye.
Juliet Tennert, Salt Lake.
Aye.
Culver River, Wayne Anderson.
Aye.
Green River, Randy Crozier.
Aye.
Upper Colorado River, Norman Johnson.
Aye.
Lower Colorado River, Jim Lemon.
Aye.
Okay, the motion by roll call vote has been unanimous to adjourn our briefing meeting. So meeting adjourned. Thank you, everyone. Appreciate it.
Thank you all. See you at about 12:30.
Okay, thanks. Bye.